At the very beginning of the story, there was a boy named Mike. He was only 16 years old, but already nearly 6'7". He weighed over 300 pounds, and wherever he stood, he instantly stood out. At first, people assumed he was overweight, because he ate too much. But the truth was exactly the opposite. Since the age of 7, Mike had been drifting from place to place. Even a full meal was a luxury for him. The reason behind all of this was his biological parents. His father disappeared shortly after Mike was born and never came back. His mother, on the other hand, had long been addicted to drugs. Eventually, the state stepped in and stripped her of custody of all her children. They were separated and sent to different foster homes. Compared to his siblings, Mike was actually one of the luckier ones. The man who took him in was a mechanic. Unlike others, he tried to help Mike stay in school, instead of letting him wander the streets. More importantly, he showed Mike a realistic path forward, getting into school through athletics. One day, a coach happened to glance out a window and saw Mike playing basketball. That single look made him freeze on the spot. A kid weighing over 300 pounds, yet moving with shocking agility. His footwork was quick, his handles smooth, nothing like what his size suggested. Layups, dunks, they came effortlessly. The coach was instantly sold. He couldn't wait to bring Mike into the school. But the principal and several teachers strongly objected. According to his records, Mike's IQ was only 80. Nearly every class he had ever taken was a failing grade. His GPA was painfully low, just 0.6. The principal bluntly stated that the coach only cared about Mike's physical build. But the coach insisted that this was a kid worth taking seriously. In the end, thanks to the school's religious background, Mike was given a chance to enroll. After all, few places were willing to reject a request made in the name of kindness. On the first day of school, the teachers held a placement test. When the girl sitting in front handed Mike his test paper, she couldn't help noticing his foot. It was so big, it looked larger than her head. When the bell rang, students chatted as they turned in their exams. But Mike stayed seated, completely still. He didn't look like he was double-checking. When the teacher walked closer, she realized the page was almost blank. On the back, there were only a few simple doodles. That lonely sketch felt like a reflection of Mike's inner world. And in reality, Mike was deeply alone. Whenever he tried to greet younger kids, their only response was running away. Only one boy, named Sean, was curious about the giant kid. He talked to Mike enthusiastically, introducing himself non-stop, until his mother called him back to the car. Not long after Sean left, the principal found Mike and told him with regret that his biological father had died the day before, after falling from a bridge. Mike simply acknowledged it calmly. No reaction. That night, lying awake on the foster family's couch, he couldn't fall asleep. Outside the door, his foster parents were arguing about him. It was a scene Mike had seen far too many times. He knew exactly what came next. Before dawn, he boarded the first bus of the day, and just like that, his life on the streets began again. When he was hungry, he picked up leftover popcorn from the school gym. When his clothes got dirty, he went to public laundromats and quietly slipped them into other people's machines. When no one was around, there was no end in sight. The future, to him, was always covered in fog. Reality kept hitting him, over and over again, until one night, Sean's family appeared again. The gym was already closed. There was nowhere left for him to stay warm. Realizing this, Sean's mother Ann immediately told her husband to turn the car around. They caught up with Mike and asked why he was heading to the gym so late. After hesitating, Mike said it was warmer there, and then asked if he had anywhere to stay that night. Mike quietly shook his head. The couple exchanged a glance. They understood instantly. The next moment, and invited Mike into the car. They stopped in front of a brightly lit house. Everything felt unreal to Mike. Their daughter didn't know what to say when she saw how big he was, since the guest room was full of boxes, and arranged for Mike to sleep on the living room couch. After showing him the bathroom, she went back to bed. But not long after lying down, regret crept in. She worried her kindness might bring trouble to her family. Her husband told her to relax and see how things looked in the morning. The next morning, and had prepared for the worst. She even told her husband to have the insurance number ready. But when she came downstairs, the couch was neatly made. The living room was spotless. Nothing was missing. Feeling guilty, she called out for Mike. No answer. Mike was already leaving, ready to move on again, and rushed outside, and stopped him. Out of guilt, and out of kindness, she invited him to stay for Thanksgiving. And just like that, the lost boy was given another chance to stay. Thanksgiving lunch was overwhelming. The table packed with food, the smell filling the house. Mike watched quietly, but barely served himself 2 spoonfuls of rice, a few vegetables. Then, when no one noticed, he slipped a piece of bread into his pocket. He was afraid that eating too much would make people dislike him again. When the family gathered on the couch to watch football, Mike sat straight at the dining table instead, and noticed immediately, turned off the TV, and called everyone back. To her, a holiday should feel like a holiday. During the prayer, the daughter reached out her hand. At Sean's signal, Mike reached out too. Hearing and say, family. Seeing their gentle faces, Mike felt like he had stepped into a dream, a world he had never belonged to before. After dinner, and offered to buy him clothes. She had had noticed. He only had one shirt to change into. But overwhelmed by kindness, Mike felt uneasy. He insisted. His biological mother still had some of his old clothes, so under Mike's directions, Anne's luxury car drove into a rundown neighborhood. A few thugs stared at the vehicle nearby. When Anne tried to step out, Mike stopped her. He knew these people weren't friendly. He didn't want her to hear anything ugly. But when Mike entered the small house from his memory, all that greeted him was an eviction notice. It meant he was completely cut off from his biological mother. The past was gone. There was no turning back. He swallowed his emotions and returned to the car, comforting himself with a single, casual sentence, and understood immediately. She decided on the spot to take him shopping instead. The stairs on the street made her uneasy. Her husband quietly reassured her he would handle everything. They soon arrived at a big and tall clothing store. Even there, very few pieces truly fit Mike. In the end, he chose the cheapest outfit, telling Anne he liked the style. From then on, Anne drove Mike and Sean to school every day. Watching the two boys walk side by side in the sunlight always filled her with a deep sense of peace. One day, she asked Mike if he wanted to stay longer. His answer was simple. He didn't want to go anywhere else. And smiled. The next day, she prepared a room just for him. Spacious. Brand new. Mike stood at the door, unable to believe it. He kept asking if it was really his. When he finally heard yes, he froze. Anne's heart ached. She couldn't imagine how precious a bed was to him. Her husband said nothing. He simply changed the emergency contact on Mike's file to his own name. With stability, Mike slowly grew interested in learning. From blank tests to answering seriously. His grades weren't great, but they improved steadily. He began asking teachers questions. Not long after, his foster father told him that if his grades qualified, he could compete in next spring season. The family celebrated at a restaurant. During the meal, Mike learned that Sean's father owned dozens of restaurants in Memphis. As they were leaving, Mike suddenly hugged a waiter, his long-lost brother. Their reunion was brief. Life pulled them apart again. At Christmas, they took the usual family photo. This time, there was an extra tall figure. When the photo was sent out, rumors followed, and ignored them, until they involved her daughter. That night, she asked how her daughter felt. Despite the pressure, she chose to support Mike. At school, watching Mike interact with classmates only strengthened her resolve. People like him deserved kindness. So when others avoided Mike, she walked over and sat beside him. Mike smiled softly. His life gained a little more light. As spring training approached, Mike finally stepped onto the field, but problems quickly surfaced. His movements were clumsy. He only knew how to defend. On offense, he hesitated. He held back during contact. Sometimes, he was distracted by things off the field. The coach was deeply disappointed. He told Mike he wouldn't play at all that season. And without improvement, fall season was off the table too. But Mike wasn't obsessed with football. What he wanted was proof of identity. So he asked Anne to take him to get a driver's license. In America, a license meant identity, but his name wasn't in the system. Mike wasn't his registered name. Not even he knew that. That's when Anne decided she would legally adopt him and register his current name officially. The process was simpler than expected. They didn't even need to notify his biological mother, who had long lost custody. Still, and chose to ask for her consent. After tracking her down, the woman slowly lowered her guard. Once she realized and wanted nothing in return. She couldn't even remember Mike's real name anymore. Drugs and chaos had erased her memory. She remembered only one thing. Mike depended on her the most. Every time he was sent to a new foster home, he ran back to her in the middle of the night. The guilt grew heavier with every memory. Knowing Mike was treated like family, she had no reason to stop it. At the family meeting the next day, Anne formally asked Mike to become part of the family. The sudden decision left him stunned, but the smiles of the daughter and Sean's eyes gave him his answer. He even felt like he had always belonged. One sentence made everyone laugh. From that moment on, his life of wandering was over. Soon after, Mike got his driver's license. Sean's father gave him a pickup truck. Not long later, an accident happened. While driving Sean, a truck forced them off the road and rushed to the scene. The pickup was totaled. Sean suffered only minor injuries. Rescue workers called it a miracle. The airbag could have been fatal. As Anne comforted Mike, she noticed his injured arms. Only then did she realize the truth. In the most dangerous moment, Mike had blocked the airbag with his hands. It explained everything. His tests weren't outstanding, except in one area: protective instinct. On the field, that instinct held him back. He never attacked, only pulled opponents away, and had seen enough. She walked onto the field and pulled Mike aside. She told him the team was his family too, and family was meant to be protected. That was when Mike finally understood. From that moment, he changed completely. Back on the field, he became fierce and decisive. No one could stop him. After a few hard collisions, the defense collapsed. The coach was stunned. Mike dominated the rest of the game. Wingate High pulled off a comeback. Sean edited his highlights and sent them to colleges nationwide. Soon, coaches flooded in. During training, Mike dropped the strongest opponent in seconds. The next day, even more top schools arrived. Offers poured in, and worried his grades still weren't enough. so they hired a tutor. Progress was slow at first, but Mike never quit. Eventually, every requirement was met. As graduation neared, another challenge arose. The Athletic Association launched an investigation. They questioned whether Mike choosing Ole Miss was truly his decision. Doubt shook him, anger drove him away, but when he returned to the chaos of the old neighborhood, he finally understood who had truly saved him. The next day, and found him, and told him the choice was his. They would support him no matter what. In the end, Mike chose where his family was. The investigation ended. 2 months later, Mike stepped onto a college campus. Before leaving, he hugged him tightly. The boy who once wandered the streets had finally found his home.